Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low-Code Cafe, episode 65. For those of you that are new to this event, know that this is a community event, so it's mostly about, it's a technical event, so it's mostly about product features, new coming features, but also a lot of hands-on part, telling stories from what happens in the community, in the community portals, for example, in the community forums or on support channels. And the biggest chunk is the hands-on part, where you see, where you can see our developers actually building real-world use cases. And I emphasize on the hands-on part because this is not like a demo; it's more like the real developer experience, where you build a system, will encounter bugs, will debug, will find what works and what not, but most of it just works. So not to get your expectations too low. Sometimes we also have guest speakers. So if you want to present in this webinar, if you have good content that you want to share with the community, drop us a line and we'll be happy to host you. This webinar is being recorded and all past editions are on our YouTube channel. Make sure to visit, subscribe, browse. There's 64 hours of very good content on how to achieve an amazing variety of things. The plan for today is that we'll have Dale, our head of support, give us the stories from the trenches. And afterwards, the biggest chunk will be the hands-on part, where we'll demonstrate how to build low-code apps that integrate with Microsoft Teams. So that's a very cool one. So hope you enjoy, and I will pass it on to Dale.
All right, hello everyone. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen, and also you're on mute. Those are the two big phrases that are in this webinar, right? Here we go. From the trenches this week, a few things, mostly just to talk about. No feature demonstration, but we just released last week version 1.16, and in that there's something that's listed as a breaking change, and it isn't, and we just wanted to mention that. And when you go into the updates section of Plantain App, you have the overview of what is currently installed, and I've already upgraded the system to the 1.16 version. And 1.17 isn't really available. I have the access to the preview, and we don't go there until we get to the next release. But that's what it looks like for you when we actually release 1.17. Anyway, we have the overview, the hot fixes that show what's available from a hotfix standpoint, and then the change log. So when you are in the process of upgrading, there's a list of what's in here. And we had one of these things marked as a breaking change, and that was a concern for a few people as they try to figure out whether to upgrade. It seems to have been removed. This was the token. This one originally, it's a bug fix, and it was originally identified as a breaking change. But we did a lot of work in the token builder, and so if you happen to see or saw it as a breaking change, it isn't really. We during version 15, we worked on it a great deal. We issued some hot fixes and resolved the open issues. So it wasn't, but we are working on providing better detail on this updates screen, so that or the change log, so that you know exactly what you're getting and why, if we identify something as a breaking change, that it might be something for you to be concerned about, or at least pay attention to. So glad to see that one is already fixed. Maybe a lot of you won't experience that issue. We, back in August, announced the DNN Sharp product retreat. The DNN Sharp, the older products, individual products. And we had a question this week about how that impacts Plantain App clients. And the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't. That all of the products that we that are part of Plantain App and that were part of the DNN Sharp suite continue to be available to PlantinApp clients, and the retreat does not impact at all. It does, it will impact people who are using just the DNN Sharp individual products. Just as a quick reminder, we now only sell licenses, the new licenses for Action Form, Search Boost, and their add-ons. Beyond that, we no longer sell things like Action Grid and Tabs Pro and tokens and the whole the products individually. They're available as part of PlantinApp. Renewals for all those products for people who are currently using them are available through 12/31. So that's one of the deadlines that are coming up. And then probably the most important deadline, there is a significant conversion discount if you're using the DNN Sharp tools. They are available at a discount. The PlantinApp suite is available with a discount, and the deadline for that is 10/31. So contact Chad Weiss about that. I'll post the link for that and some other links on the chat in a few minutes. Next thing, that all products require SQL Server 2012. We had somebody that we had a client that didn't have SQL Server 2012 installed, and you start to run into a few things that won't install correctly or work correctly until that is resolved. So in our compatibility page, we have that listed at once you hit version 1.13 or higher, that it is a requirement, SQL Server 2012 or higher. We also, I think Bogdan mentioned it last week, we officially support DNN version 9.10.1, and we recommend that you're on version 5.16 or 1.16 under that version. So this compatibility matrix, we maintain this ongoing, and then I guess the other major is our minimum is DNN 961. So that's main thing there. And then there was a question that came up on our sister meeting podcast webinar, the Campfire webinar about YouTube notifications, and just wanted to make sure that we covered the setup for that. We regularly release these two webinars and other content on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/PlantinApp. But whether or not you get the notifications according to the YouTube documentation has to do with whether you're subscribed and the notify all. And then there's some things within the account settings that you might also want to take a look at. So I thought I would get into that. So on the PlantinApp channel, there is the ability to subscribe, and then there's the notification bell with options, and so it's all or personalized or none. And we don't post an abusive amount of stuff here, so I would hope that you would choose the all, but all or personalized will get you some notifications. And so make sure that you're selected there. And then the other one is in the account icon settings notifications. Let's take a look at that. So if we go to our, where did it go? Account settings. So there's the icon, there's notifications section. And so you're going to want to go in here and make sure that you have turned on things like email notifications. And then you can also take a look at what you've unsubscribed from. If you've ever unsubscribed from us, it'll be listed there and you'll be able to resume that. So it's turn on email notifications, turn on emails, and check your unsubscribed. So we hope that you go through those steps so that you get the content from us every week. And the last thing that I'll mention about our PlantinApp channel, I mentioned we've done a little bit of rearranging. One of our pieces of content, the Low-Code Campfire, wasn't listed, and we've thanks for mentioning that. We've now added that, so all the contributions in Low-Code Campfire are there as well. And one of the great ways to find things is when you go to our channel and use the search box, you can click search and look for a particular content like see our integrate anything series. You can type that and you can see we have full calendar, mermaid, all the different ones. So that's a great way to search and find and get value out of the Plantain app channel. And all of those are, we work very hard to have chapters in there so you can jump right to the part that you want to see. Very good. And with that, we will go on to the hands-on low coding part with Bogdan and Radu.
Sounds good. So to set the context for what we are about to show today, it's one of the systems that we built internally for our use and to use with customers. We call it DropLink. So basically, it's a system to exchange private information. So sometimes it's about sending passwords, username passwords to the customers, or sometimes it's about shared logins between members in our team. So all this kind of, let's say, sensitive information, how organizations we see and how we used to do it is maybe you post them in a chat group, maybe you send them over email in plain text, but that creates some problems. Besides, of course, being there some in a clear format, it's also like the let's say the screen security, because sometimes you are in a Zoom meeting like this, and then a message pops up and says, "Here is the username and password." That's very risky. Or you are in a public space again, sharing content in a public space, looking at sensitive content in a private place can have its security ramifications. But more than that, exchanging the data, we also needed to have traceability, to know who opened that link, and also record some audit information. And you'll see that we collect quite a lot of information. And then what we did, we participated in a Microsoft workshop where we demonstrated how this can be integrated with Microsoft Teams. We are using Microsoft Teams internally, and it's becoming more and more popular in the organizations above many other different direct communication systems. So that's the let's say the real world problem that we solved with this system, and we'll demonstrate. First, I will show you how it works. So I will switch to my Teams view, and then we'll get to see how it was built, how it communicates with the Microsoft Bot infrastructure and things like that. So I'll bring here my chat with Radu. Radu will help us show the hands-on part in just a few. So basically what we did, we added a message extension here. Still need to add a nice logo for it. But when I click it, it has currently two actions. So one is to send sensitive data. So basically, when I click it, I have to specify some secure data. So this is the user, and then this is the password, and then I can define some policy around it. Like this content, for how long can it be accessed? So I will say 3 days, and maybe I will say 2 weeks. No. And then, of course, I also want to receive notifications. So when somebody views this content, the system will let me know. So I click submit. What it does now, it creates a card inside the chat. So I can say, Radu, here's the login, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, I could send it. I have all the information here. So you can see the availability, the number of times. I have a link to open the email client with a pre-formatted message directly from here to send this via email to, let's say, a customer instead of sharing it with Radu over Teams. So then hitting enter, Radu will get this message. When Radu opens it, when
I can open it. I can open it if you want also.
Sure, you do it.
I think you should continue because the message should be displayed on your screen as well, but I'm gonna do my part in the background.
Yeah. So, oh, what did I do? I closed all my windows. That's not good. I had stuff to show. Okay, so getting back to the my chat with Radu. So now when Radu will open, we also have a chatbot that's installed in Teams, and the chatbot has its own conversation with each person. You know, so when Radu will open the link, and I see he already did that, the system sends me that the data link was accessed by Radu, and I can see the entire. Let's see. You can see the entire log on it. You know, so this is the information that was shared. Of course, the body is encrypted. Nobody can access it. It's encrypted. It sits encrypted in the system. But then here in the logs, I can see everybody that accessed this. So Radu, if you try again a couple of times, I think I put 2.
Sure.
Yeah. Then I'm able to see that he accessed it again. And then if I do one more, I can see that that the message expired because we defined it that it only allows being viewed 2 times. No? So then now the message is expired, but at the same time, you notice how my everything flashes in here. Drop link. So drop link has been telling me that Radu tried to open the link again, and then he tried it again, but the message was expired. No? So I have real-time notification of who's accessing my links. So that's at a high level. That's what this drop link bot solves for us. Is sharing private content. We don't put it in the chat anymore. We don't send it in on emails in clear text. We use this mechanism to share it. Any questions so far on the functionality before we move on to look at how it was built?
Yeah, I don't see anything on the chat yet.
Okay. Cool. So one thing I would say, all of this was built without actually writing code. You know, so it was built just through API communications with Azure, with Azure and with DropLink, of course, which is a plant and app system. I will start by showing you a bit about the setup on the Azure and Teams side, and then I will leave Radu to give you the full presentation on how DropLink was built, how it, what APIs goes from Teams, and so on. So,
and before you move on, there was one quick question about whether Radu needed to be able to prove his identity before he opened that link.
Yeah, so the way it works, it's we have 2 mechanisms, one that requires login and one that is for external customers where we don't require login. So when they go here, they get this screen. You are about to access private information. You have some kind of authorizing yourself, assigning yourself for the request. And then it asks you to verify that your screen is not currently being observed by anyone else. You know, so it gives you like some awareness that you are accessing private information. And when you see it, of course, I will get the same message that it's expired. So yeah, there is a sign off, but of course, we also have the login part where customers do log in into this system. And actually, they log in with the same account that they have in Plant and App on the console, so it's the same account.
Great, thanks.
Cool. So now jumping a bit to show you the setup. So I will start with what we had to do on Azure. So on Azure, there was 2 things that we had to do. We had to create an Azure Bot on one hand, and on the other hand, we had to create a application. So starting with the bot is pretty easy to configure. I mean, it took us longer to find out what settings we really need, because basically this is the important thing at the top. This is actually the URL to an API that lives in DropLink, so it's an API endpoint. It's the feature that we have in the product, and it receives some information there. Of course, we'll change the API key after this event, so don't try to grab it. And then other things that are configured here, I think this one, which when you create a new bot, this application is created automatically for you. So usually you don't have to create it manually. So that's it on the chatbot. That's basically all you need on the chatbot, because then on the application side, that's where you have for example endpoints, so you know where to do the authentication to get a bearer token, and Radu will show that more in a bit. That's where you create the credentials. So you go to the credential and issue new credentials to be able to log in. The credentials will be encrypted here. You can decrypt them. Actually, I wasn't able to decrypt them. I had to create a new one, but I'm sure that you can decrypt it somehow with a key. And then I think there was some configuration that we had to do here regarding the channels, but I think that was for the bot. Yeah, the channels. Yeah. So then another thing that we had to configure is the channel. Where do these messages can go? So where does the bot sends the messages? So Microsoft Teams was one. Web chat we use just for testing, but there you can have many other channels as well. So you can have one bot that can be accessed from Teams, but also from Skype, from WhatsApp, from Facebook, Twilio, and other places. Cool. So that's all the setup that we had to do here. Of course, we had to save the application ID, the application secret key. We had to save all the bot IDs, the application IDs, because the next step to create an app let me see, to create an app inside Teams. Let me give me a second to find the screen for you. Manage team. Okay, so basically you go to manage team, and then in manage team you have an app screen, and here you can upload a custom app. So it's as simple as uploading a config file, and I will show you the structure of the config file as well. Let me bring it here on the screen. So it's basically a config file, a manifest file that describes the application. So you have some metadata about the publisher, and then you can have two icons as well in the zip file. So there is a zip file with 3 files. One is the config files, and the rest are the files that you refer here. So you can have a logo, you can have an outline. I don't know what that is used for. Of course, descriptions and things like that. What's very, very interesting, and you'll find this very similar to plant an app as well. So here in the component extension, this is where that form came from. So the form, when I opened the drop link where I put the body, the expiration in days and limit, it was automatically generated based on this config file. And this might look very similar to you. We've been doing it like this from the start. In the administration screens, in the action screens, all the settings are generated from a JSON like that. So this generated the UI for us in Teams, so we didn't have to do any UI. And then, of course, it was about defining the action. No, I think this is for inbound. Yeah. No, so this is the action, and this will be sent automatically to the API that I pointed in the bot. And Radu will show us how he gets these messages and does the routing based on which message comes, because that's one important note to make. All commands go to the same API, so you can only have one endpoint in the product to handle all Teams communication. So I would say that at a glance, that's it. So you can find this config file on the Microsoft documentation. So it's nothing personal. I just wanted to show how it all glues together, the config file with the Azure Bot, the application configuration, and the most important thing is it's the link that I've shown to you in the application, the endpoint. Sorry, in the bot configuration, this endpoint is the most important piece, because this is where messages will get routed. Cool. So this will be like the setup that we did outside Plantain app in order to enable the communication between the throttling on one hand and Teams at the other hand. So now I would like to pass it to Radu to show us the behind the scenes of how the bot was how the communication was set up in Plantain app.
Sure. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so the idea will be something like this. So every message, so every message that happens based on what Bogdan just showed you is gonna get pushed inside Plantain app through one API, but only one API. The idea is that if you have 3 forms, 3 custom logics, different things that your bot does in your application, maybe one action maybe just adds to number, and the other one it's the sending sensitive data. So those are 2 separate actions. The trick is that both of them are going to come into the same API. So what you need to do is create like a router style workflow for that, so you know exactly what kind of action just happened, so you can take proper to do the proper logic behind the scene to provide the functionality. So in that so in that situation, as you saw earlier, Bogdan pointed out that there's one API which is called execute Teams action, and behind the scenes this API itself, it's just executing a workflow which I call the team integration switch, which maybe a router was a better name, team integration router for it, which I'm getting the whole JSON information from Teams itself, and I'm doing data manipulation behind the scene, and I'm outputting the response back to Teams as a raw response JSON content type. But I think the most interesting thing behind the scene is what's happening behind the scenes of the team integration switch. So we should, I think we should move at this point into the workflows itself. Okay, so behind the scene in the workflows, we have the team integration switch workflow here. And if I click on edit, the trick here is that I'm getting the whole information from the whole, the package of information from Teams, and I need to decide exactly which is the next workflow I need to execute, and I need to get the response from and pass it back to Teams. So what I did here, I said that if it's a send outbound to the definition of the action that Bogdan just showed you earlier, I said, okay, we need to create an outbound message in this situation. This itself, it's another workflow here. So I'm just saying, if it's an send outbound, for the moment it's not implemented, the inject data is as a placeholder for the moment, I'm just gonna do, if it's different, I'm just gonna do nothing for the moment. So the idea will be that every time it comes, I'm gonna go to the top branch and execute. So now the execute create outbound message itself, it's again another workflow into the system. So I kind of imbricated the logic a little bit, complicated it a little bit, but I think it's a better structure to do it like this. So right now, and at that point, what's happening is that I'm generating a unique ID. I'm generating a unique ID for the workflow itself, and I'm saving that ID, the geo ID, and after that I'm encrypting. I'm doing an RSA encryption. Pretty sure the key can. Okay, I'm just doing an encryption on the body itself. So I'm not storing the data by any means in clear text. I'm creating a new outbound message Teams, and this is actually an entity. Maybe I can show you the entity before I move further. So it's an outbound Teams message entity, in which I store the GeoID, the sender name. So I have this information from Teams. I'm storing the body as an encrypted text, the date the expires in date. How many days is the message gonna be erased? if I want to receive notification, which is the access limit, which is the current access limit. So I'm just lowering that number for each access, and whenever this hits 0, you're gonna get this message on you as an end user. And also I have a list of logs. The logs are the items that Bogdan showed you. We exactly specified the country and the country region, and the city, the zip code, the latitude, the longitude, and everything like that. I have the sender ID, which is the user from Teams, because if the notifications are marked as true, I need to send back notifications, as Bogdan showed you. That user wanted to access the data, that user actually access it, that user couldn't access it because it's expired. So you get you get information real time of who's seeing your information. And also what I'm doing is I'm saving a hash of the data. So the idea, it will be something like this. The idea is that because I'm actually erasing the data after either the limit is reached, or either one of the two limits are reached, either it's expired because the too many days passed, or the current access limit is it's 0. At that point, I'm actually erasing the body of the information, even if it's encrypted already. I'm just basically deleting that. And what I'm doing is that I'm creating a hash based on the original information, an MD5 hash. So in case there are issues, let's say, or someone complains about something that we didn't put the proper information or something like that, and it still has the proper data, we can hash that information, and we can prove or disapprove on the fact that that was the actual information that we sent to them, but we are not storing them in any other format, just a hash, and a hash is not reversible. So that the hash is not reversible, so that should be fine for checking out this kind of informations. And also the bot ID, the origin that triggered this event itself for pushing out notifications back to it in case it is needed. Okay, so this is how the outbound, basically the outbound message looks. And maybe something that I can also show you is the logs themselves, the list of the logs that was attached to that, by just storing the IP, the type of the log, which is just to type success and expired message, the country, the region, the city, the zip, latitude, longitude, and also the device fingerprint in case, in case someone complains, hey, I didn't access the data, or something went wrong, or who got access to that, and we can actually show them, hey, look, those 3 devices access the information from this country, this region, and so on. And we can, in case we need to go that further, we can actually do again a device fingerprint of any devices that he claims that he accessed the information from, and see if those are the actual devices. So that's basically another way to track who's seeing and who's not seeing, basically who's accessing the information. Now, getting back to the workflow, what I'm doing initially, I'm just creating an outbound Teams message. So that the thing here is that I'm just storing the unique ID that I generated earlier, the sender name, the encrypted body, the expiration in days, received notification, access limit, and initially when the message is creation, the current access limit should be the same number. Also the sender ID, I'm doing the hash on the encrypted body, as I told you, and storing the bot ID. Now, what I'm doing after creating this, what I'm doing after doing this is the fact that I'm actually creating maybe I can make this a little bit. The idea is that I can choose what configuration. The idea is that the response that you saw that Bogdan received in the compose area, basically where you are typing a message in Teams, it was generated. It can be generated based on a config file, a JSON config file. So what I did is I'm just creating a JSON using the execute JavaScript action. I'm creating a JSON where if I want I can do other extra logic, but the idea will be that I'm generating the JSON that I need, including with the proper URLs, the unique IDs that I need to and everything in the text blocks, even the send email button, when it expires, how many accesses it can have. So we can actually see those there. So what you are seeing here in this card on the right side is actually the configuration that I'm seeing here, that I'm planning to give as a response to the team, to teams back. Okay. And let me, okay, and after that, after having this generated, actually, all the tokens that I have inside, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna replace them with the information from the context. So I have an untokenized response, which I'm putting into the response variable with the recursion of 2. So I get everything replaced with the tokens, and I'm outputting that back. So in that situation, what I did is, because the action type of the initial request from Teams was of type send outbound, I took the information that it sent me, I reroute them to this workflow, and this workflow actually outputted me the response back that I need to give to Teams by executing this workload that you are seeing here. The trick is that behind the scenes, what I'm actually doing, I'm using the unique ID that I generated to create a unique link, a unique link into the system. Not that complicated. So if we take a step back, overall, to achieve something that's maybe not that dynamic, that I did it here in preparation to have support of multiple action, it's, I think, a set of 6 actions that you need in a workflow to start receiving information from a Teams bot and giving them responses back. So kind of easy from this standpoint. I think another thing that I should mention is that on this page, and I think it's worth it to show you. Let me enter. On this page itself, I have this view message form, and this is actually on a page called /team/message, and I have the parameter called ID here in the URL to identify which is the message. And here I have, for example, I put in the device fingerprint available for me to identify the users whenever you load. If this changes, that means that the device that you are accessing is changed, or something in your behavior of the browser changed. Now, behind the scenes, under the view message, I think what's interesting to show you is there's a few logic when basically whenever I click the view data button, I reinitialize the form, and by putting the name here, I get into the execution of the read outbound message, which is another workflow that's into the system. So reading a message, then this is another story, because here I basically have 2 branches. The idea will be that I'm checking basically to see if the current message still has accesses that can be displayed, and if it's equals or lower to 0, I'm just gonna I'm gonna say, well, I'm sorry, but this message has expired, so I'm just sorry. There are no more views into the systems. Otherwise, if there are still message into the views available for you, at that point I'm lowering that number by 1. I'm decrypting the message, and I'm creating I'm creating a new Teams log. Basically, I'm logging where that message is getting viewed from, and what are the parameters, what's the context of that user. I'm doing that in both situations. So even if you don't have, I'm actually doing that. So if I go back to the view message, you see that I'm passing all the informations based on the FreeGeoIp token that we have into the system. So this is going to pull information basically from the context of the user and from the IP itself, and it's going to give me the majority of the information that I need to track that user. And something, and if you're interested in the user IP, you can pull it with user.ip. And I'm just getting the event type, the message, and the sender name. And at that point, based on those variables that I'm storing here, I'm taking different actions. Like should I display basically the body? Should I display the sender name, and so on? So I'm making this form a little bit dynamic to adjust basically on the response of the read output message workflow. All right. So that being said, so yeah, kind of like that. Executing the log is just creating the log and attaching it to it. Now the last piece of code that I have, and so as you can see here, if everything is okay and I have a name and everything, and basically it's signed. The fact it's signed. I have the name of the person that's viewing this. What I can do, if the notifications, and I can figure out this inside that workflow, I'm gonna say I have a workflow which is called post message bot, and this workflow itself will give back a notification to the creator of the URL. So if Bogdan send me a message, a sensitive message, credentials of some kind, whenever I access it or whoever access that link, he's gonna get notified that there are people accessing that URL. So you know that your message got to the end user. The trick was that initially Droplet itself, not the integration with Teams, but Droplet itself, to give you some context, was designed in idea that you want to share some credential outside your company where you cannot enforce some of the politics. And the idea is that if your company says, hey, I need those credentials to be, you can share credentials, that's fine, because they're the client systems, but they should not be available more than 3 days. You cannot go back each time and ask people to delete their information, or, if you have a chat message or, different communication source to go and remember manually to delete those messages, or even if you send them over email. If you send them, that can be a breach because you're not in control of the user security of that email. Maybe he's already breached, or maybe it's going to get breached in a year, and someone is going to find those passwords which didn't got changed. And by using this system when passing through links, you are in control of how much that data is going to be available and for who in that system. If you want to go a step further, you can even limit. I was discussing with Bogdan that maybe the version 2 of this can even include some features like if your first open of the link was in, for example, Romania, that's the only country from where you can open that link furthermore from that point. So you don't share that link, or maybe we can even bind it to an email address. Whenever you receive that link, you need to input the email address, and you get another link in exchange, so you secure it at the 2 levels. So there are places where we can go with this further. But the idea is that for the moment, you get a notification in Teams whenever someone accesses that. And to access that, what I want to mention in this situation, in this spot, is that we have some private keys in the actual workflow, but I have a exact copy of it that I did, and I can show you. We can go through that, and it's exactly the same, but only some of the keys got replaced. So the idea will be that before you communicate back with Teams, you need to authenticate yourself with through a bearer with a bearer token. So to achieve that, so first of all, you'll need to know which is the actually message. You'll need to identify which is the actual message that got read by someone, and by doing that you can identify the owner and notify the owner. So once you have the information of the outbound message, as we are doing here, the next thing it will be is to exchange your credentials that we have here and here, to exchange that using this URL. And depending on when you watch this video, if it's now live with us or on YouTube later, this may change, and Bogdan showed you in the first part. There's a list of URLs that a endpoint that you can use with these bot services, and this is the one that you need to use to exchange this for a bearer token. So what we're doing, you're just passing the client ID and the client secret and the scopes. And we are expecting to change for a client credential token. We are getting this response by passing the proper headers. Again, those are documented, but they may get changed. And then we are getting the bearer token as a JSON response. And in continuation of that, we are parsing this if we have to receive notifications. If you check that the checkbox when creating the message, we are taking the bearer JSON and parsing that into tokens. So basically transforming a JSON into plant and app variables, the plant and app tokens. And with that, we are going to the next server request where we are using that. Again, if the receive notification is true, we are moving forward with the process, and we are pushing the response. Basically, we are pushing a message. We are pushing a message to the. We are identifying where we need to push the message, and at that point we are using this API. As you can see, you expected to have maybe Microsoft or something into the URL, but again, they are using different kind of APIs for the chat, trafficmanager.net. So it's not something. So you need to look into the console to identify those APIs, and after that you specify the bot ID, so you know from where is the source, the bot name, which is the users that you want to notify, and the channels, the tenant basically is a hard-coded GUID that you can use here to specify it exactly into the channel. Now, after that, again, passing the bearer token that we achieved a little bit earlier, and passing the content type and getting the conversation ID. So that's what we are interested in right now, to get the conversation ID. Now, again, after we get the conversation ID, we need to parse that response back into tokens. So this is something kind of let's say a usual thing to do when working with Plant and App. Whenever you get a JSON response, you kind of need to transform it into Plant and App variables after that, so you can use them. So you get the conversation ID again. You get the conversation. You get from that response, you get the conversation, and after that, based on the state itself of the message, has it expired yet? Does it have access, availability, and so on? After that, you either get on those two branches. So maybe I can zoom in if someone is interested on the conditions themselves. But the idea, it will be that it's either expired, or it's either someone got access to it. So the thing it will be that I'm just gonna go to the one that has access. So the thing it will be that we are composing the URL for pushing the notification forward for the bot, and after that we have basically the JSON structure that we need to put in for basically the link and everything that we need to pass on. So we received and I think I have here, we received this kind of information. So this configuration that you are seeing here, the messages, the links and everything, link access by name and so on, are gonna get you're gonna get received into Teams back. So that's basically it, and the workflow ends and you get the message. So this is kind of the process. So in the future, we're planning to do an integration where I can generate links for requesting information from people. So if I want to ask Dale from some credentials, I say, hey Dale, credentials. I can send him a link. Hey, can you provide me access to whatever, and can you pass me this information? And he can just go in and complete that. And whenever he fills in the information, I'm gonna get a notification back that, hey, so you got your credentials without even passing the messages in clear text. So Yeah, that's kind of the process behind the scenes, and hopefully this is gonna help us a lot in not working with to be compliant with the regulations and everything. Cool.
So can I just add a couple of thoughts there, Radu, and a question or two?
Please.
I wanted to mention to anybody watching this that we covered the drop link in a different, we created drop link as a product of ours, and that's in a different low-code cafe. So this is one particular application for using Teams integrating with our drop link. But you could use the techniques that you're showing here basically are receiving a message from Teams, being able to send messages through Teams to other people. So there's a lot of other ways this could be used, right?
I mean, sky is the limit in this situation.
Well, exactly. So for example, if somebody had an application where they needed authorization from a person before moving on to the next step of a process, you could send out a message by Teams to Bogdan to say, give Dale a raise, yes or no, and he types no, and now we have the process could go on, but it could be completely automated other than the authorization stuff, right?
Yeah, the idea is that I'm seeing this like I'm seeing the what I've showed there. I'm seeing it as two possible things. It's either you just enable the new channel of communication besides the email and the SMS. So you just enable the new, you can communicate to a system. You can notify people directly through the system that they work in there, the chat. And I think in the pandemic context, everyone is working with the chat. There's not a lot of people are talking face to face anymore. And the second one, you can create your own chatbots now. And you have the chat, integration, and you just need to go and create workflows on the same pattern that I showed you, and you can do basically your own chatbot. So if there's no chatbot that fulfills your need, just go on and create your own. You have a full power of Plant and App behind the scenes, and yeah. You can have two buttons or for Dale's raise, and it can actually happen from the chat itself. You can have two buttons there with yes or no, and the HR system behind the scenes can automatically do that, notify everyone and everything like that. So you don't need to complicate with everything with anything. So I'm not sure if it's a bot for that, but we can definitely build it, Dale.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I just wanted to point out, I mean, we focused on a very narrow case. This is something that we needed, the integration with DropLink, but it's pointing is you can integrate Teams with anything else with Plant and App as the medium to make that communication. And I mean, we've talked in other cases of automating other workflows, things like that. And this could be a piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Now that we learned how to do it, I think you will start using it a lot more for integrating all our other systems, because right now we have 10 different systems built with Plant and App. Some are HR, so for example, when somebody asks for a day off, not a raise, but a day off, somebody needs to approve that, things like that. And also, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. And even with this drop link, we want to take it further, because now that we have the metadata about people accessing it, we can do other things like restrict the geography from where people can access links, or the country, or the IP, even the IP, if it's like an organization IP or a VPN ID, then we can do this kind of stuff. Cool. So for me personally, this task seemed a lot more complicated when we started it, because it felt like we need to write a lot of custom code. Because if you look for documentation for it, custom code is what people do usually. So we had to reverse engineer it here and there to find out what are the actual JSON that is needed to communicate with the team bot. So then it became like a trivial task. It's something that we do every day with Plant and App, sending requests and parsing JSON.
Makes sense. And I don't see any open questions on the topic, but very good demonstration.
Sounds good. Okay, everyone. Thanks again for being here. Hope you enjoyed this new episode. I know it was let's say a bit more technical, a bit more niche, but I think it demonstrates the power of technology today and how you can have users interact with systems in a much simplified manner, because chat and buttons are easy rather than logging in many different systems. So I'm hoping this plants many ideas in your head, and we'll be seeing each other again next week with new interesting content. Bye, everyone.